Greetings and welcome back to the Casual Wargamer. Today, looking at the Necron preview from a week or so ago. I like Necrons. They're a cool army. When they first came out, they were kind of the Lovecraftian existential horror sort of feel to them. They were meant to be the space undead for 40k. And that really suited them. Over the last 20 odd years, though, we've got more and more information, and they don't kind of have that same feel anymore. They feel very much like a normal alien empire. I think a lot of the fear and the fluff has gone. But that's not to say they're a bad army. I really like them, and they are one that I have on occasion thought about playing, but never quite managed to get myself or convince myself to take that next step. So I'm looking at the preview here on the computer, and the first thing that comes up is the new reanimation protocols rule. This seems to have caused a little bit of a stir among Necron players. I've seen a lot of comments where people have said that it's absolutely useless because your opponent now can gun down your entire army and you might not get anything coming back. And I can't argue that, but for me, as someone who has found the previous reanimation protocol style rules to be a little bit unbalanced, the new ones for 10th edition feel a lot better. It's true that if your opponent can wipe out an entire squad of, say, warriors, then you're not getting any of them back. But as it currently stands under 9th, I shoot your squad of warriors, 3 of them fall over, you get to roll to see if they stand up again, say 2 of them do, the next squad fires, and so on. And it ends up kind of being, it feels like it was a waste of time for me to even shoot them. A waste of dice rolls, which could potentially be considered their way of playing. But the counter argument is if your opponent is throwing everything into destroying your units over here, your warriors, your immortals, your whatever, they're not focusing on the real things, the big problems that are going to basically fly into them and deal with them. This I actually think is a much better way of doing it. And as we see in the actual Necron Warriors preview, instead of reanimating D3 wounds, they get D6. So you can get a good chunk of a unit back, in theory, if there's even one just left standing. Much more balanced, I think, but time will tell once we actually get to play the game. The Warriors stat block looks quite nice. No complaints there. They are the basic battle line infantry for your army. Let's say they get to reroll. Well, there you go. They get to reroll D6, as I say, or more, +3 if everything's an objective marker. I think this means, again, not seeing the full index yet, but it could be that we might actually start seeing warriors being played again. They don't seem to get a lot of love anymore. I always seem to face people playing immortals instead. It would be nice to see the more traditional troops taking the centre stage once more. We also got given the stats for the monolith. Now, this is nice, and again, I think we might start seeing monoliths being played, depending on points. A couple of weeks ago, I played a local tournament in my local game store, and someone brought a monolith. That's the first time I've seen anyone play a monolith since, I want to say, 5th edition, probably at least 10 years. They went from being really, really good to being not worth the points. This seems like a nice comeback. It looks like it's going to be nasty. I mean, all vehicles look like they're going to be nasty in 10th. But you may actually start seeing these being fielded again. I wish in this preview they had given us somewhat. We had Guilliman, we've had Angron. I would like to have seen the Silent King previewed. It's nice we got the monolith and all, but I'd like to see how he's going to be shown off as one of the big bads. The preview of the weapons is nice. They seem appropriate to what they are. They don't seem too overpowered. And we get a Protocol of the Hungry Void battle tactic stratagem, where you have a chance of increasing your to the end of the phase, add 1 to the strength characteristics melee weapons equipped by models in your unit. Because if you've seen that preview, the Necron warriors have a close combat weapon now, which I think is just there to showcase the fact that they can fight in close combat. And if you have a character leading the unit, the AP goes up by 1 for melee weapons. So this is quite nice. But I'm going to raise this as an issue. Melee. Okay, every army in 40k should have a strength and a weakness. The strength of the Necrons was always they are this implacable foe, this inexorable, is that the word? March. They just keep marching towards you, firing their Gauss weapons. And you shoot them down, you blow them up, and they just come back together, and they're slightly closer to you, and they just march on you. And that's the sort of horror. The only sort of units they had for melee were things like Lichguard, the Nightbringer, who understandably is what he is, and Flayed Ones. And they weren't great in combat. The weakness of the Necron army was the fact that it could not do melee very well. It wanted to gun you off of objectives. It wanted to shoot you down to prevent you being able to do too much back, and allowing them to get models back. 9th edition changed that with the add of things like Scorpec destroyers and the like. Suddenly, they don't seem to have a weakness outside of psychic, and even with that, 10th edition, the psychic phase is gone. It's now just a shooting attack or whatever. And it feels to me that they've given Necrons something that they probably shouldn't have done, or not as well as they should have done. Rather than being this march forward, shoot, and you can't kill me type approach, now they're making Necrons to be a much more, I'm going to say well-rounded, because that's what it does, but it makes them, they're good at both aspects of the game, and actually quite good at both as well. It kind of feels that they shouldn't have such a good melee approach. That's just my opinion. I'd say every army should have a weakness, and melee was always theirs. But we shall see what happens with everything else when we get a better preview, we get the index books and so on. All in all, what we have with the Necron preview here looks nice. It's a little too bland, but that's because they're keeping it to themselves for the time being. I think some of the other previews have done better. They've made it more interesting. If I was a Necron player, I wouldn't be overly impressed by what was showcased here. It wouldn't make me more excited. But I'm hoping that Necrons will continue to be a fun army. They just don't really seem to get played around here locally. Pardon me. And it would be nice to see them back on the battlefield again. Hopefully 10th will do that. Anyway, what are your thoughts on the previews for Necrons? Yay, nay, somewhere in the middle? Let me know what you think. And what do you think about what I say, where Necrons just seem to be very much more all-rounded with no weakness anymore? Let me know what you think about that. Anyway, give me a like, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care, good gaming.